so this is episode 3 of my developer commentary for Cosmonaut, which is my entry to NostalgiaVille, which was hosted on runthinkshootlib.com between the 27th of April and the 24th of June. And this is the third map, and in my opinion it's the weakest map out of the 3. And there's many reasons why I think that. Obviously I'll go through them. A lot of it's to do with the final showdown battle, I guess. We are in the same area as we were. This is the third map, so when I load it up in the console, it's the same area, but the crates don't spawn, because I forgot to put like a point template with the crates spawning where they are. You know, it's not that important, because the majority of people will play the, you know, obviously just play the whole thing through, and when the landmark and trigger change level, they all work fine. It's just when you load it up through console you don't get a few crates. Minor issue. Okay, so initially this whole area until you get to the yard was just a corridor. There was a corridor here, there was a scanner that you could shoot or hit or whatever. I decided, after getting feedback from playtesters, that there should be more puzzles. Added this in, which in theory it's a completely stupid idea. It doesn't make any sense, is basically what I'm saying, but it's still quite an interesting puzzle. So there's just a bit off here. You can get this gun that's hidden behind here. Just a bit of searching. It wasn't like you had to go far, and you know, I quite like this. I quite like this area. But this part is actually a puzzle that was seen in Fallout 4, which is, as I've said before, a game I quite like. And it was seen in like a parking lot that I think raiders set up, and you've got 4 doors. And you can see it's fairly easy for the player to understand what's happening. So some players might understand it by trial and error, like pushing these. It looks like I'm pushing that button, but I'm pushing that button because I'm right next to it on the wall, which is something I'll go over in a minute. But yeah, by checking. So if they're unsure at first, by pushing the buttons, they will be able to get it. Basically, they'll be able to understand. So I had to make this as easy as possible so the players weren't stuck here for ages, because stuck in this area, you know, it's fairly small, claustrophobic, not a lot to do, nowhere to go. You know you've got to solve this puzzle, and if it may spend a lot of time if I added more doors or more buttons or whatever. So this is a very simple solution, and I'm going to spoil it. So if you haven't played the mod, you know, look away now or whatever if you want to play it and get this puzzle. It's really easy. In fact, anyone could do it. I'm just going to show you now. Push that button, push that button. There we go, the doors are open. 3 buttons. I'll just reset it. Let me try it again. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Let me try that once again. So we reset it. 1, 2, 3. If you get my point, you can push 3 of these buttons in any order whatsoever, and the doors will open, no matter, you know, that's as easy as it is. But the thing is that a lot of players will stop and will actually think about it, so they'll be thinking, oh, now I need to, you know, do this, and oh, right, now I do that, and then it actually makes them feel like they've worked it out. They've actually worked out, which they have, because if you push that button, I don't know, maybe if you push that one and then you're unsure and you're like, oh, what do I do? It could take a few tries, but it's always fairly easy to figure it out because there's only 4 doors, 3 buttons. It is possible for them to get stuck, and I did put measures in place to prevent this from happening, but for some reason they still don't work. So if I push that button, I can't push this button until, you know, a long, well, not a long time, like a second after. But if you stand close to it and you do that, see, the doors are now stuck. I believe it's now impossible to solve because there's only one door open. So if you push that button there, you're now moving the... Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is it is stuck. So if this does happen to you, if you've come looking for a solution, just start spamming it again and one of the doors should reset. This is something I'm not happy with that happening. I am happy with the puzzle, however, and I guess you could say, oh, the rebels set this up to block Combine from entering. I don't know, but it was just something there that was a bit of fun. This is just a connecting area, so I'm quite glad I put that there, but it's boring. Okay, so now we're going to get to a set piece which I quite like. You round the corner and you get to look out into this yard with the train. You get to see kind of the platform over there. You get to see these buildings, but then this train blocks your view and it's slowing down and it will stop basically. So you basically can't see anything that you could see. So this train kind of acts as a wall. It's actually really useful because it's acting as a wall to block both player movement and vision. Again, I'll go over that more once we get up there. So my hopes were that the player actually stops to look around the yard and, you know. Now I'll come back and talk about this area after I've gone through the initial battle, because I want you to engage in the combat. So we've got one of these annoying guys, and then you hear a Combine soldier, which is, that was just random in that instance, but they do talk if you wait here, so you can kind of get a sense that they're there. Going down the stairs, you are blocked by this thing, and this is just kind of to stop you over here, to save you from going over there. And then they start firing at you. You can see them there. You get a bit of cover by going down here, so it's vertical cover. It's different from wall cover, but you do have wall cover, but I do like the adding in also the vertical cover here. They're going. One thing not a lot of people noticed in playtesting was that there's a guy up there. Now, I think I've messed up the inputs, or I think it's a bug where if you... There's an input, I think, that says after a certain time, you know, the NPC shouldn't go to that, you know, the machine gun up there. And I set that for civilian NPCs, specific ones, but it seems to happen to all NPCs, but it hasn't been called yet, so I don't quite understand that. I'm sure someone's probably going to suggest it, and I'll be like, yeah, that's supposed to happen. Honestly. But yeah, we'll go back to this area. I was going to talk a bit about it. So this platform thing, I don't even know what it is. It just seems to be like a maintenance part, and I don't know how this thing got up here. I'm sure someone's probably going to say, you know, how did that get up the stairs? Because, you know, this, I don't even know what this is, but this bit was kind of designed so, you know, the whole looking out thing, and then the train coming across it, and then I put a door here just to justify it. That's the only reason why this door is here. So if someone says it's pointless, it goes nowhere, I'm like, yep, there's a door. I mean, it doesn't make very much sense. The building's not particularly good looking, but it's still there. And as I said, this thing's here to block the player, so to save them like going any further, they stop, and then they get shot, and they see the Combine soldiers or the Metro Cops are there so they can engage in them. It is possible to crouch under this train, but if the players over here, they can also go through this area. This isn't in fact a platform. I don't know what this is. This is just another area like that one over there. For some reason the train stopped here. In terms of, you know, why the train stopped, I have no idea. It just did. Because it helps with gameplay. So now we're going to... What was that? Can you stand on part of that train? Yeah, there's like a invisible train wall here. I don't know. Anyway, right, so now there quite a lot of stuff's going to happen, so I'll try and remember to talk about it all, but we're going to move through here. So first off, you hear the alarm. Now, see what the Metro Cops are doing. They've moved. And I'll just explain that once I've taken them down. Incidentally, we've also got the SMG gun, which I wanted to include much earlier, but there was the whole underground train section, which I refused to give any more weapons. Obviously, it wouldn't make much sense because there were no Metro Cops, so I had to give it here. And it's quite a good point because there's still a bit of combat to go, so it's not as if you're not using it. Now, I'll explain that bit. I was going to explain it much sooner, but we walked around the corner. It also works when coming down this way. These Metro Cops come up from that staircase there, and the train crosses the path. Now, initially that train was on a loop similar to the one in map number 2 that was on going round and round and round. I realised that was kind of just repeating that, so I only did it that once, but I found when it was crossing, the Metro Cops had moved position when the train had gone into the tunnel, and then it would come around again and the Metro Cops moved again. And I thought that's quite a funny concept, you know. It actually feels like they're moving, so more often than not they do move while the player is behind the train, and it actually works very well, so it's kind of more dynamic than one would think. Also, these two Metro Cops don't spawn if the guy up there is still alive, because the guy up there is much of a hassle in itself, basically. So yeah, so if you kill him, there's a trigger here that triggers the train, and that means that these guys will spawn if this guy's dead. So again, just to talk a bit about layout, as I said, you can crawl under these carriages, which is good that there's multiple ways to go. But I've put these fences along here to block the player, so that the player can, you know, shoot the Metro Cops. They can see the Metro Cops, but they can't go through here at all. So basically, the player has to take a longer route, so it's not a direct route. You couldn't, for instance, jump through here and just run straight to the final location. You always have to move either round this fence, or sometimes you kind of round both. I mean, I wouldn't make this any longer, that would just be silly. So, but you've got to move, and it just makes the map feel, you know, a bit more, or rather, it allows the player to explore more of the map and not just run straight to their destination, which is boring. Right. I think that's all I had to say in this area. We will now collect that. Oh, is that a bug? I think there might be an HDR bug. I think I just saw something in that tunnel which could potentially be a spoiler. But you'll see what it is in the final zone. Okay, this area was designed deliberately weird. I mean, I'm not so happy at the texture work, but it was designed so that there was stuff over there, down there, ammo up here, so you can choose to go down, and if you want to get the ammo you can jump up here, or if you want the boring route, all you need to do is go down the stairs, round here, to this ladder, which I've tried to make as easy as possible to climb. No, I've tried to make as clear as possible, although I think I could have done a much better job. Yeah, it's some players might not see it, but the fact that there's stuff up there, you see, this is where I'm like, well, I could have done a lot better on this map. Okay, so the train goes across again. I've triggered it, and it does it just to show it's a living world. And then we now get attacked by these guys. Once again, there's a barrel available, but only for that guy. I seem to be missing all my shots. I can jump over here. There we go. And it's possible to hide. It gives you cover here. This thing is only here to help the player get onto the roof. I know there's like a window there. I believe it's like a temporary thing, I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to justify poor design, but it's just to help the player get up, and it also, you know, you can take cover here. I'm going to now talk a bit about visuals, because initially I had props, low detail props as the buildings. There's one really good one, or I think there's two really good ones that were used in Half-Life 2. Similar to that one over there, that's just a prop, so you can place that in your map, albeit I think that one's in the skybox. But these were big full-sized ones that I had lining here, one over here and one over here. And when I put them in, I knew for a fact that they were supposed to be long distance. I knew they were supposed to not be up close in the forefront. But I did not, I basically could not be bothered properly making brushes for all the buildings around here. Obviously this side was already, you know, I did these buildings and they were fine, but then I couldn't be bothered. But every playtester said, you know, all these buildings are supposed to be for, you know, far away, and, you know, I knew that. I just couldn't be bothered to make the buildings. So eventually, after getting told a third or fourth time that, you know, the buildings were really low quality, I decided to, you know, actually make them out of brushes. Now, this one that just looks awful, but the whole thing took about 2 hours to make them all, and a lot of it was just copy and paste, like a wall, raise its height, take the roof, move it on. A lot of them are similar, like that one and that one over there is similar. But the one I really, really like is this one over here. And to me it just looked like an old hospital, so that's why I put the sign there. And the sign is obviously from episode 1. I'm not sure if people will like that. Maybe people will say, oh, you know, that's breaking continuity, it's not part of the nostalgia. But to me, this whole map kind of isn't going for the nostalgia, it's more going for a strong finish. Incidentally, I think I failed at the strong finish part, but it's definitely going for like a final battle in a unique area. Obviously, we're now in a train yard, we're not in the sewers anymore, we're not on the beach, we're not in the city. Well, we are in the city, but we're in a train yard in the city. We're now at the final battle area, and I'll just go over it very quickly. I think this final battle is extremely, it could be better put together. What happened was I basically, you know, scripted the thing with alarms and music, which you will hear, and then I made all of the different waves, because this is like a wave style, come in at certain times. But at this point the player doesn't know if they should be pushing on or waiting, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to, you know, make it obvious. So what I've done is I placed all of these, you know, crates here to make the player think, oh, maybe I'm supposed to wait. But that's the only thing, so a lot more could be done to make the player stay, you know, or teach them that they've got to stay here. And also a lot could be done to teach them that that's available. Obviously I told you about the bug earlier, that's quite annoying. So here we've got our first wave. You can hear the alarm and you can see the man-hacks, you can hear the man-hacks, and that gives you a bit of time to get to the gun, to use the gun. Obviously these man-hacks are super easy to take down, they come from this side as well. But what I found is certain playtesters were not using the gun, they just didn't go to the gun. And before, in an earlier version of this map, the man-hacks basically came from everywhere. There was, at one point, there was like 15 of them on screen. Now, 15 when playing on easy is, you know, it's easy. But they were coming from that tunnel, they were coming from over there, over there. It just wasn't working on difficult mode, so I dumbed down this whole battle. In fact, has been dumbed down so much that now I'm waiting. It did get suggested that I use a math counter, so once I've killed them all, it moves on. But that would mean having to re-script the music and the alarms, and I could not be bothered. This was quite recently, like last week, so which, you know, last week when I finished it, handed it in. So the alarms signal when a new wave's coming. Obviously a good place to have them forefront. Then this door explodes and this guy comes out. This door also explodes, I'll just show it. And then you can choose to shoot him with the machine gun or fire him like that. So again, it's easy, but it's kind of breaking you into the more difficult bit, which is coming up next. It's not actually too difficult, but it's supposed to be like the boss fight of the map, even though there isn't a boss, like a single boss. So I tried to get the APCs to work, but they wouldn't work in terms of damage. So what I did is I had to put a math counter saying on damaged add 1 and then on hit max destroy. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I hit this guy, I think it's 15 times, there will be an explosion, but he will not die, and that's to show that you're doing the right thing. So watch. There we go. That was more than that, less than 15, I think. So if I do it a bit more, he will then explode. Actually, I could have hit the barrel, and that would have taken even more damage off him. So that first guy is a teaching mechanic, and I'll just show you what I mean with the whole, you know, it's a math counter. See, there we go. I shot him. There we go. Took him out with a machine gun. And at the start, I thought that's a bit dodgy. Maybe we shouldn't do that. But it's actually quite funny, especially if the player isn't quite sure and they're shooting it, then they can see they're clearly doing damage. It's not ideal to use like the math counter, and I'm not sure if there's any other way of doing it. Maybe I completely failed. But this is kind of, we're now at the final bit, the difficult bit. You're now being shot at with both gun and yeah, gun and rocket. That's the word I'm looking for. First death, there we go, at the very end. You really have to watch. That's what I found. You really have to make sure you're keeping an eye on this guy. You're keeping an eye on the rockets. And once you've taken out that guy, it should get a lot easier, but obviously now he's firing rockets because I'm a bit further away. But I made this deliberately hard because I realised how, you know, easy the rest of it is. So I'll talk a bit about that in a minute once we finish this, because I can't talk and play. That's when I get rubbish and people start commenting, you know, oh, you have no right to criticise anyone because you're bad at combat. I am bad at combat, but you know, that's just the way it is when I'm talking and playing. And then this guy comes. Now, incidentally, you can shoot at that guy, but he won't die because of this. Now you see there, it's a bit glitchy. And that is it. Like, that's the end of the mod. Now, it's fairly bad design. It's fairly bad design to have the player not finish the final enemy. But I feel the comedy... I felt like the comedy would... you know, overshadow that. Or not overshadow it. It would... I felt like the comedy would be much more funnier of the train coming and just knocking the both of them out. Obviously one's dead already. Rather than the player having to fight yet another one. And sometimes the train gets stuck. Not like in a bad way, but just like gets stuck and for like a second. And I could have done more to prevent that, but it's actually funny to you know, see. And you know, because these kind of glitches are quite memorable, and hopefully someone would like play this map and remember the time that the train got stuck on the APC or something. I don't know. That was the reason. So it's actually pretty bad level design, and I personally don't think I'll do it again. You know, looking back on making it, it was you know, cool but not the best. So that whole battle I felt was a bit of a mess, and I don't regret doing it, but I regret doing it the way I did. So with the APCs, I would have actually found out properly how to make them, you know, how damage properly works instead of using math counters, which was a very botched way of doing it. Unless that's the way they were done, but I don't know. What else? Yeah, like the man hacks, I would have had it once the player destroyed it, they'd move on. I didn't give very much time for the player to go over here, and at the end with the two of them, there should really be cover here, so I feel that's probably not going to go down too well with people. Obviously I'm playing on difficult, it's a lot easier on normal. Yeah. One last thing to address here is the music. There's 3 songs that play in the final battle, and you know, it was said that there should only be one, but I was trying to... I really like the idea of dynamic music. You know, that's something I like. So the music here was supposed to break up the wave, so you're supposed to get manhacks and combine, or I think it's just manhacks, the first music track. Second music track was the Metro Cops coming out of the doors and on the bridge, and then it would finally go on to the final one, which was the rest of the APCs. And it's just supposed to show that waves are actually happening, and it breaks it up more, so the player feels like there's more structure. So I quite like that bit. I like the fact there's 3 tracks. I'm not sure how other people will receive it, but I guess I'll wait and see, and then as you're watching this, I will know. As I said, I'll make another video detailing feedback. Anyway, so now we're at the final bit, the most pointless part of the mod, which I was borderline going to cut, but I ended up not.
Finally. You smell that? It's freedom. I can't believe this day has finally come. Yeah, ready when you are. Let's go.
I know it doesn't make much sense. She's saying, oh, this day's finally come. Like, what day? What have I done? I've just, like, taken out 4 APCs and a few combined soldiers. Oh, they're having trouble. Yeah, but basically, yeah, it was just, she had to say something. She had to show that the mod had finished, and I had to do it somehow, so I did that with these lines to congratulate the player, to make the player feel powerful or something like that. And this building doesn't make very much sense at all. You know, you're going into a... I don't know how they took down the shield. Like, it's like, I'm very against that stuff in terms of you finish the battle, now the shield randomly gets taken down. So having the people coming through was my first idea, but then I think, well, how did they take it down? Because it's a combine shield, not a civilian shield. So that's somewhere, again, I would make it much better, and that's just one of the things that makes this map not very good. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. And yeah, you walk into this industrial building and then suddenly it's, you know, there's an airboat in here and these women are here.
Climb on in and fire her up.
And there was supposed to be like a lambda symbol to show it's like a lambda base, but I think that went missing somewhere. Yeah. And this is just like the end. She doesn't actually push. I was wanting her to push like a button on there to show that she's opening it. That doesn't happen. The door just rises once you get into it. And then you can, you know, drive away into happiness, as it was described. And that is Cosmonaut. That's all 3 maps. So I want to have a huge thank you to those people who playtested it. Those people are on screen now. Very different people, played different styles, found lots of different things and gave lots of good feedback. Honestly, I don't think I could have picked a better 4 people to play test. They're people I can trust to give me good feedback. So thank you for that. Just to sum up, Cosmonaut started off very well. I feel I started it with a lot of nostalgic moments, references to the start of Half-Life 2. Especially with the player taking on the role of a cosmonaut. Now, as you noticed, there was no closure to that cosmonaut story. You know, the cosmonaut never flew back into space or whatever. It was just him getting in an airboat, which doesn't make very much sense in terms of the story. I wasn't really going for a story, I was going for a premise. That's why the cosmonaut had to be new in town, and you could take on the role and roleplay if you so wish, but you know, it wasn't like there was a full story to it. The second map, there was good parts and bad parts. There was parts I definitely could improve. Obviously, I went over them last episode. And that third map, I wasn't too happy with. And there was a lot of good ideas in there, especially with the train and the layout. But the final battle could definitely be rejigged. So if I was making this again, I would do the final battle completely differently. I'd probably change the layout. So I'll probably make another video or 2, maybe a few videos on the making of Cosmonaut, and I'll release them over the next, you know, few weeks. And yeah, just to see what people said and feedback and whatnot. But thank you everyone who watched this mini series of 3 videos, and I hope you learned something from, you know, my design process. And you know, if you've got any questions, I'll always answer questions in the comments, so feel free to post there. But thank you very much.